Hello, everyone. My name is Sierra Cook, and I would like to welcome you to 370's webinar on SMS for universities. We are going to be discussing the various ways SMS increases student enrollment and engagement. Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that we will have a brief Q&A at the end of the presentation. Questions may be asked using the Zoom's hand-raising function. This webinar will be recorded, so you can revisit any information at any time after the presentation. Now I'd like to turn things over to today's speaker. It is our CEO at 370, Mr. John Wright.
First, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Hope everyone has a nice lunch in front of them for those who are on the Central Time Zone. This is a really exciting time and interesting time inside of the EDU space with all of the everything going on between compliance and challenges in the marketplace for both for-profit and not-for-profit. There's also an enormous amount of opportunity in front of everyone here that's been joined today and everyone who's not joined. But one of the things that we see a huge opportunity out there today is incorporating SMS into your enrollment efforts. A couple of things we're going to go over today. Number one, just touch base quickly on why SMS is important as a communication vehicle. Number two, we're going to review the different communication types. Number three, we're going to review the specific enrollment communications being used. Then we're going to move into increasing enrollment and how to do so via SMS. We're going to discuss a couple of best practices, and then last but not least, we're going to get into the Q&A section. As Sierra mentioned, you can use the hand raise function inside of Zoom, and we'll address your questions at the end. So first, why SMS is important. Probably the number one item here is that mobile phone numbers are permanent. Today, there's research that shows that the churn amongst mobile numbers is 10% over a person's lifetime. That's versus 30% churn every year with email addresses. So whether you're in enrollment, whether you're in alumni communications, whether you're in existing student communications, one of the best vehicles to maintain communication with is a mobile phone, both during their college career as well as when they move on. The next piece is access. Today, texting is the most widely used and frequently used app on smartphones. 97% of Americans use it at least once a day. It's also been important to note that it's not just a millennial. 80% of American adults text, making it the most common cell phone activity. Responsiveness. Text messages have a 98% open rate, while email messages average 20%. Text messages have over a 45% response rate, while email has a 6% response rate. It's immediate. 90% of all text messages are read in under 3 minutes. And then last but not least, ROI. SMS chat converts at a $60 to $20 phone call to a chat that costs pennies per session. And that research is provided by Forrester and Contact Babel down there. So what are the different types of university communications? Today we're going to be reviewing enrollment communications for new students. In the next coming weeks, we're also going to be having webinars that go over existing student communications, alumni communications, and classroom communications. So stay tuned, and if you've got people who you work with, colleagues who might be interested in these other sessions, or you yourself are interested, feel free to join us in the coming weeks. So what are the different types of communications that currently are happening today that SMS can be used for? First and foremost, cutoff date reminders. This is something that specifically SMS speaks very well to. Oftentimes, students are being emailed. They're not checking their email in time, and cutoff dates are a day or hours away. What is a quick way to get in front of them? Push an SMS to them and say, hey, you've got to have this done, and you've got to have your enrollment completed by this date. At this time, 4 o'clock today, you've got to have it all done. Other important date notifications. This can be done for everything from orientation notifications to student gatherings, campus events. great use if you're not just an online university, but you also have an online as well as a campus activities. Financial aid reminders and notices, another great use for SMS. Missing documentation reminders. If you're trying to get students in and they need to get scores from their test or transcripts, great way to get those last-second notifications in order to meet deadlines. One other one that is also a nice use, collections. Oftentimes, there's an outstanding debt that a student can't, or an outstanding balance with the university that a student can't get enrolled for the next semester because there's a money owed in another area that needs to be settled first. A great way to do that is SMS being used for collections. And last but not least, meeting notices. If you've got a meeting with an enrollment counselor or something like that, this is a great use of SMS to notify them, hey, here's where it is, and here's a link to the map that will take them to where they need to go on campus. So, how does SMS increase enrollment? Talked a little bit about it earlier with the immediacy of SMS, quicker open and higher response rates provide an immediate action. Number two, communicating on the enrollee's time. Again, this is really important because a lot of the people who are enrolling, this is their primary way that they communicate. So touching them using that communication channel versus phone or email, which are often not answered or not reviewed, is a great use and a great way that not only increases your enrollment, but also increases the or enhances the user experience and allows them to communicate on a vehicle which they're familiar. So the next one is a big one, and we're going to touch base a little bit about a customer and someone we're familiar with and how they're using it. But diverting call center traffic and wait times in queue. I know that this is something that's very close to a lot of people's hearts, because when you're calling in and trying to get through to a call center and you're stuck in hold, that is just can ruin an experience, and you're going to see a lot of drop off. Also, the cost, when it costs between $5 and $20 a call inside of a call center, diverting those costs into a more affordable channel, that being SMS, is a great way to reduce cost as well as enhance the user experience. Another piece, using the data collection and analytics provided by SMS. There is a ton of things that can be gathered and, again, used for internal analysis in order to not only reduce costs, but also look at how your enrollment, the people who are working enrollment and the reps that are working for you guys can do a better job and do their calls, perhaps providing templates to them that basically allow them to provide quick feedback and quick touch points using text communications, and also being able to review all of the communications, both outbound and inbound, visually, as opposed to going through and listening to call by call by call, or just sitting and picking up a phone and doing random selections. You can go through and search on, review by rep, by inbound versus outbound, any segmentation that you'd like. You can go in and segment your response, inbound and outbound files, using SMS. The other added benefit that we're really going to touch base on just briefly here is safety and security. The security is, number one, securing the student data and the personally identifiable information, i.e. their phone number, protecting perhaps your reps from seeing that and allowing them to text without seeing the number. Also, the safety and knowing that you're seeing all the communications and making sure that the reps are acting and conducting themselves in a professional manner. And again, this is what 3seventy does today. And with regards to engagement, we provide the ability to engage students at scale through one-to-one as well as mass texting, one-to-many outbound as well as inbound. The tracking, everything that we're doing is captured and recorded in our software and our database, allows for review of every message sent, received, the response time, very important, seeing how quickly messages are being responded to, as well as the content of those messages. I alluded to this briefly earlier, but again, Understanding what's going on in your existing communication flow is something that's very difficult to do with call centers, and text provides that. Security, protect students' personal data through permission controls. Again, as administrators, you have the ability to control how much your reps are able to see and have access to. And last but not least, and very important for the guys who are on the accounting side, but is diverting traffic from call centers to text channel, which increases engagement, enhances the user experience, all while reducing cost. So one of the examples that we're familiar with is Post University out of Connecticut has implemented text messaging in all of their call centers to communicate with prospective students. Every call center rep has an assigned number that is used to communicate status of enrollment, remind students of important dates. The ROI of this effort has been substantial. The cost is pennies on every dollar of new revenue that is generated and coming in the form of new student enrollments. The nice thing about using software like 370s is too, as you've got reps that perhaps come in and out of the organization, those messages stay with your organization. So the numbers that we're maintaining inside of our system are portable. So as reps come in, we can also make it very easily to where there's an application that's actually on their personal phone that allows them to communicate with customers as well. So they can actually access if they've got a student who responds perhaps after hours that they're close to getting enrolled and they're trying to get them in last minute. Again, if your call center reps take their work home with them, which oftentimes they do, we do have an application that supports that should you require it. So a couple of things with regards to best practices. Number one, frequency. If you're doing a lot of outbound, and promoting certain dates, understanding the frequency. As important to that is understanding the day of the week as well as the time of day. Oftentimes, we like to have controls that communications are not happening after 8 p.m. at night. Obviously, inbound would be okay, but doing outbound, during hours, very important to notice. And understanding if there are rules that apply, if there are more general information, obviously you don't want to be sending someone who's got a dinger set on their text at 2 o'clock in the morning. Understanding those things. And these are things that our company can help with, or obviously the compliance side of things, we can help with that as well. The messaging, cadence, what you're sending, how you're sending it. Again, having templates kind of pre-established as far as how to answer certain questions and the messaging that you're trying to convey, and maintaining a professional messaging sequencing and cadence in that. I touched base a little bit on this earlier. Compliance, something I'm sure is near and dear to all people who are either work for-profit or not-for-profit universities these days. And then last but not least, integration. All of this is for naught unless you're integrating the data that's being collected and putting it into your ed tech technologies that you perhaps have in place already today, or your CRM systems, ERP systems, whatever it might be. But again, our system and most systems that are out on the marketplace today have very accessible APIs for getting information out of an application set and allowing you to look at not just one channel, but looking at text along with all of your channels for multi-channel communications, whether it be direct mail, call center activities, emailing activities, then all going into a centralized database. Or again, if you're wanting to integrate these into existing application sets that perhaps your call center reps have today, our APIs also make it very easy to access our application set through other technologies. So integration, a big key there. And as the ever-changing world of technology continues to develop, things are getting easier and easier to work cross-platform. So that's the end of our webinar today with regards to what I've got to present. I would like to see if we've got any questions, or anybody has anything to say. Okay, we've got a couple coming in here. All right, so first question is can you tell a little bit more about your existing customers using SMS? The customers that we're talking about today and we have experience with today we mentioned one during our example set, but that customer is seeing a huge growth and is primarily on the enrollment side. They do both have an on-campus as well as an online portion of their business. So promoting emergency alerts, they're also big in using it for alumni, but the primary function has been to divert call center traffic and at their cost of, they know down to the penny what it costs to take an inbound call. Diverting some of those costs into text has been a huge money saver for them, as well as increasing their student experience as they're bringing customers in. Got another question here. See, how much of the message data is available to be carried over to this how much of the message data is able to be carried over to the CRM from your APIs? That's a great question. And the answer is all of it. The message data we capture if the message was received by the carrier, if it was delivered to the handset. So that's called delivery confirmation information. We actually carry all of the message information, what message was sent, when the linkage that's being used in this case would be tied back to your CRM system, would be their mobile number, so we would make a tie using that. And again, you can pull as well as push any information into and out of our system, but all of the message data from what time it was sent, what time the message was received, what message was sent, what delivery information. We also have carrier information that comes back from the user as well. That's a great question. Anybody else have questions that they'd like to ask? Okay, we've got another question coming in here. Looks like MJ has a question. Do you want to do that on chat? We saw your hand raise. Must have been an erroneous hand raise there. We're not seeing what's going on. Well, everyone, I can't thank you enough for taking time today. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, oh, we actually had the question come in here. How does your SMS messaging work with automatic triggers? That's a great question. So the triggers in our system can either be stored in our system or they can be initiated from a third-party software set. So if you're tracking different phases of the enrollment process, for purposes of this conversation, since this is around enrollment, anytime a person moves to the next step inside of their enrollment, and there's a mechanism inside of your system that you're maintaining, whether it be homegrown or whether it be a third-party system, that can basically dial up an API call to our system, and it can either direct what content and what number needs to be sent, or it can tell us just to notify this user that this preset message stored inside of your system needs to be sent. So again, great question, and very easy to do, and works across multiple systems. We have integrated in with, I can't tell you how many different CRM systems today, and ERP systems, third-party homegrown systems. So we've got a lot of experience doing that. Our API set is extremely rich and flexible, and very easy to understand. We also, for those of you who might have developers who ask, what languages are supported, we've got multiple language sets in the form of software developer kits that are available. Those include Java, PHP, Ruby on Rails, .NET, MVC, and C#. So probably a little bit more than you need to know, but again, if they've got questions, feel free to reach out. My contact information is here. And again, all of this information, as well as this recording, as well as the information, will be available after we get done with the call. So anybody else? Well, thank you everyone again for attending today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to attend and hope this information was useful. My contact information was here. If you have questions, please direct them to the number or the email on the screen. Otherwise, you will be getting a follow-up email with links to the recorded information tomorrow. Thank you everyone for attending, and this is the end of today's webinar.